It's not really what I mean. I've stayed with Rural Metro because I believe in it. I believe that the privatized community fire service works, and it can continue to work.
All right. Well, welcome to another episode of The Den. I'm Eric Whitener, broker owner of the Knoxville Real Estate Group, and today our special guest is, I'm going to be honest with you, I believe you're the first repeat person that we've had on the show. But we have
reasons.
We have Jeff Devlin today. And Jeff, last time you were here, you were the interim fire chief for Rural Metro.
That's right.
Today, you are no longer the interim.
That's correct.
You are the fire chief.
I am. Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
And now that's obviously huge. But the reason why you're back again is so we could talk about Rural Metro. As a real estate agent, one thing that people sometimes get confused upon when they move here, or even some people who've lived here a long time, don't really understand the relationship with Rural Metro, and how that whole thing works. So I really appreciate you being here to help explain. Obviously, I feel like we're getting the information from the top. So that's pretty exciting. So let's get started. The first thing that's different is Rural Metro is subscription based.
Correct. Yeah. So Rural Metro Fire, who we've been here since 1977, and I can give you that whole backstory if you're interested. It's
That'd be
a good
cool.
history lesson. So we were founded in outside of Scottsdale, Arizona, in 1948 by a gentleman named Lou Weitzman. He was 23 years old. He was intrepid young reporter with his pencil and his notebook, and a house caught fire in Scottsdale. They had no fire protection, and the city of Phoenix responded to the city line and said, we can't respond outside the city of Phoenix. And so really, for no other reason than trying to protect his community, he went and bought a fire truck and started selling his neighbor's subscription, and he made it a private company, right? And his vision was that we can do things more efficiently and better than municipalities. So that's how we started, and he was on the circuit in the 70s giving different speeches, and he was in Knoxville, and a gentleman by the name of Bill Blankenship, who had been part of the Bearden Fire Department. People don't realize that Fountain City, before it was annexed in the early 60s, had its own fire department. Bearden had its own fire department before it was annexed in the later 60s. And so there was a new subdivision called Lovell Hills out here in West Knox County, near Farragut, and it was they were building like 100, 200 homes, and so they started what they called the West Knoxville Fire Department. Bill Blankenship and a couple of other people who had been part of Bearden started that in the early 70s. And so they were struggling, as a lot of these volunteer fire departments in Knox County were. And so he went and saw this presentation by Lou Weitzman, founder of Rural Metro. And in 1976, we started a management agreement with West Knoxville Fire Department. And then in 1977, we basically said to them and these other volunteer fire departments throughout Knox County, about 5 of them, in addition to the West Knoxville Fire Department, we said, hey, we can just absorb you guys, and we're a solution here. And so that's how we started in 1977. We've always responded to medical calls, we've always sold subscriptions, and most importantly, and sometimes less so today, but in the old days for sure, we respond to everybody, right? The guys on the trucks have no idea who's a subscriber and who's not. But yes, back to your question, we sell subscriptions to businesses and the individual homeowners. And it's generally based off of the square footage of your house, and it's a yearly thing, and you can use your credit card and have it swipe every month like Netflix if you want. So we try to make it a little easier for people these days.
So, and I'd like to get into more about Rural Metro itself, but I think covering this part here is really what a lot of people's curiosities are. So if it's subscription based, but you're going to come out anyways,
right.
How does that, like, first of all, why is it subscription based? Why at this day and age are we doing that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the subscription funding model, I'm a big believer in I don't tell lies. So the subscription funding model has its flaws. It exists in Knox County because we don't receive any tax dollars. So your taxes do not pay for fire rescue in Knox County. It's privatized through rural metro. 80-something% of it's through rural metro. There's a little bit down in the south that's Seymour Volunteer Fire Department, and then Hardin Valley Carnes has Carnes Volunteer Fire Department. They do subscriptions also, just like us. They copied that, which I totally get because it works better than donations.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And our viewpoint is that subscriptions allow that choice for people. We want more people to choose to subscribe though, because running a fire department is not free. And the bottom line is we're efficient and we do it cheaper than anybody else for sure. But there's cheaper than everybody else, and then there's not having enough of pennies in the purse.
Well, totally. So one of the things I've heard, and I know this isn't true, but one thing I've heard is, if you're not a subscriber, they'll let your house burn down, and I know that's not true.
Right. So I think the best way to respond to that is the men and women that work here in Knox County for rural metro take their profession, their career very seriously, and would never do that. Now you're gonna get a giant bill.
And that's the next part is I've also heard, because you send out 2-3 trucks.
Yeah, so for example, here in West Knox County, you're going to get 5 engines and a ladder, and you're going to put National Fire Protection Association (NFPA), level numbers of people on the scene. So we're going to try to get to that, 15 people, 20 if we can, because that's what's safest. It's proven. So you're going to get that many trucks and hopefully that many people on a residential house fire. And you're going to get charged about $1,100 an hour for each truck. And I think what's really important about the billing portion of this is that we don't like doing it. It's a stick. It's a necessary stick. We have to do it because that's what's fair to the people who actually subscribe, right?
Right.
If everybody just got it for free, well, we would close within a week.
Yeah.
So, and another thing too is, the amount of revenue that we bring in off of billing people is about 2% of our overall revenue. It's really nothing. We're not making money by billing people. The reality is that emergency services, the cost is not the response. The cost is the training people, the equipping people, making sure that the community has these services at the ready, right? So whether it's law enforcement, fire, rescue, ambulance service, that's the real cost. The cost is not the actual, we go to a fire and we bill you for service, right? So
Right.
It's not like going to a restaurant and I want the filet mignon instead of the cheap steak, and I just get to make that choice. Bottom line is that these are services we have to provide here in this community. Community's chosen rural metro to do it, and this is how we fund it.
Well, so one of the things that I've been told, and then this may not be something that you necessarily can answer, but there are some people who feel like, well, I have homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance will take care of it.
Yeah.
And I've heard that's not necessarily the case.
It won't pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your homeowner's insurance will not pay for, a $35,000 bill that we send you if we're there for 5 hours on a major fire. So please subscribe
Well,
for your own protection. And look, so here's the other thing about fires, Eric, the subscription portion of this that I think is super important. A lot of times, rural metro, and this is something we need to be better at, right? We'll reach out to you, or you'll get a letter in the mail, and it'll say, quite frankly, sometimes the letter in the mail looks like a scam. I get it. You're like, what is this? But the reality is that the billing portion of it, or the fee we're going to send you if you don't subscribe, my ask for people is that they pay less attention to that. If that's why you're going to subscribe, great. But it's really about being part of the protection for your whole community, right? We're a community, and we want to take care of each other. And the reality is that if you're a non-subscriber and Go down the list of the emergencies you see in the newspaper, on television, whatever. But more importantly, let's just say your subdivision. The elderly gentleman next door who's mowing the yard and has a heart attack. When we come out for that, and we do every time. Well, you didn't do anything for that. The 17-year-old across the street that is out here driving and gets T-boned and now is pinned in their vehicle and needs to be cut out of it. You didn't do anything for that.
Right.
Your place of worship that catches on fire. Your employment, your place of employment that has a shutdown or sprinkler burst or whatever it is that we're out there for trying to mitigate. If you're a non-subscriber, you've not participated in any of that. And so my ask is that people focus more about the community than just their personal property. Sure, yeah, subscribe to protect that too, because we're going to send you a big bill. But really, focus more on the community portion of this, because rural Metro is not out here making gross profits. We are far more the grocery store than Apple. I promise you.
Well, so the it's definitely an interesting model. I don't find it actually to be that. I mean, it's not like it's necessarily expensive. I mean, you're looking at average typical house probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 or $500, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, our average subscription for the year is about $400.
$400. And to have one of the benefits, I would say, having a facility such as what we have with Rural Metro is better. At the end of the day, better insurance rates is one of those things, because there's definitely, you're going to be better served having a Rural Metro in your backyard than potentially a volunteer setup, I'm assuming.
Sure. So, I think we bring in more revenue than if we went out there and said, please donate, right? Look, so the volunteer fire department thing is that the reality is that the socioeconomic part of Knox County has left volunteerism behind, right? We're still the volunteer state. There's still 690 fire departments in the state of Tennessee. The overwhelming majority are volunteer. But we're to the point as a community that you're just not going to be able to have a fire department if it was volunteer. And I can explain that because when I started a very, very long time ago at Rural Metro, 1990, there were 30 career people, and there were about 100 what we call reserves, paid on call people. We never had truly volunteers, but for all intents and purposes, you could call that volunteer. That's completely reversed out now. We have pushing 200 career people, and we have about 35 reserves, because just people, and that was necessary. Like, we had to do those things. It wasn't about, we want to have more expense and more career people. We had to do that to deliver the service. So, it's really, really hard to try to run an emergency services business or any kind of outfit volunteer in this size community.
Yeah, I could only imagine. One conversation that I had with Vice Mayor Louise Pavlin, we talked about like how Farragut specifically is set up to you pay your county taxes. So if you live in the city of Knoxville, you pay county taxes and city taxes.
Right.
And your city taxes cover your things such as fire, police, trash, all those services.
Sure.
And obviously we could have that sort of set up in the county if we wanted. Her words made a lot of sense to me, were along the lines of, with the model we have, what you're paying for, right? So like this money that I'm writing this check to goes to fire services. This money goes to trash. This money, we know what services we're paying for, and thus can understand our budgets better. Now, I don't know if a lot of people think about it that way, or even think about it sometimes. I don't know. But I do like that idea of saying, hey, okay, so I know exactly where these funds are going.
Yeah, I think there's, how I would respond to that a little bit is, Rural Metro serves at the pleasure of the community, right, and local government. And whenever local government or the community wants it to be different, we would still say we're the solution to your problem. So, for example, if the community wanted to fund it through taxes, we would still say, let us do it instead of starting the bureaucracy of a local government fire department. But we do what we do because this is what the community says they want, and this is how they want to pay for it. It's our job to be here today and try to sell you to make sure you're paying into it so that everybody benefits. Because the reality is that our current subscribers are footing the bill.
Right.
They're paying for the non-subscribers because, again, if a non-subscriber has an emergency today, we're coming, and the subscribers are paying for that. And so the way to make it more fair is to increase the overall percentage of people that actually subscribe. But we serve at the pleasure of local government and the people. And if ever they want to do something different, that's really up to them.
So there are two entities. There's Rural Metro and then AMR. Are they the same under the same umbrella, or are they two separate?
No, so we are the same thing. So Rural Metro has gone through many iterations, right? So we've been traded as a public company, we've been owned privately, we've been owned by private equity, and we're currently owned by private equity, and we're all part of this company called Global Medical Response. So Lifestar, Helicopter, AMR Ambulance, Rural Metro Fire is all part of the same kind of corporate umbrella. Rural Metro Fire has been kind of siloed off on our own from AMR, so we operate we have less seamless kind of interaction with them than maybe we did 5 years ago. So I think that they like us a little more as an independent entity, and it works well when it's working, and there are synergies there that we try to maximize. But at times, we're such a small portion of global medical response as a whole. The business really is about taking people to the hospital, whether that's ground or air, and we're kind of this other thing. So, they've tried hard and done a good job with kind of making sure our needs were met, and we're kind of a little bit separate from them. But here locally, we know all of them. We interact with them all the time, and we're good partners with them.
So, okay, so talking a little bit just more specifically about Rural Metro, you just mentioned you've been there since, you said, 1990?
Yes.
Okay, so that's definitely a long time.
Yeah.
I would say that's a successful career. But over that time, I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes.
Absolutely.
How about let's have you ever worked for another fire service?
No.
Okay. So, because I was going to ask, sort of like kind of comparing the.
Well, I think I still have the expertise to compare it. I don't have a problem doing that. I'm without like too much badge tapping is what we call it here, folks. I'm a graduate of the Executive Fire Officer Program at the National Fire Academy. That's a 4-year program. I'm credentialed as a Chief Fire Officer by the Center for Public Safety Excellence, and that's a global program. So I interact and know a lot of people from a lot of different fire departments. I think the difference with Rural Metro, ultimately from a traditional tax-based funded fire service, rescue service, is that we just do it way more efficiently. And there's pros and cons to that. I just, again, I'm not going to put lipstick on the pig, so to say. We have really highly trained people, but we have less of them because labor cost is really your biggest cost.
Yeah.
We have a lot of times older trucks, and we have a great fleet service. Those guys do a fantastic job, but we tend to keep trucks longer. Balancing that pressure point of whether it's the stuff or more importantly the people is always the greatest challenge. And so, just as an example, the City of Knoxville Fire Department is a fantastic outfit. If you live in the city and you're getting them as your fire department and rescue service, you're getting high-end service. In Rural Metro, I would argue you're getting the same thing. We do it for more than half of what they do it for. Now, again, it's all fruit, but it is very different. We don't have an urban downtown area like they do. So, again, it's not saying we're better than them by any means. It is different. Rural Metro is different. There's no doubt about it.
So, how many fire stations in our area does Rural Metro have?
So we operate 17 stations,
Okay.
right? And most of those day in, day out have what we call ALS or advanced life support. We went all in on that in the early 90s. So more often than not, staffing challenges and the change post-COVID has altered this a little bit. But more often than not, you're going to get a fire truck there before an ambulance and with the same stuff and the same capabilities as that ambulance showing up, and you're going to be treated by us first. And we're proud of that. Our mission is to take care of people, and that's what we do every day. And again, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for our people. Our people are fantastic, and they are really the ones that go out and do it. I'm just the guy in the head shed, that does podcasts.
Well, and we do appreciate it, because I think this kind of helps clear a lot of stuff up for people. But I do find it interesting that Knox County doesn't have the same kind of service all the way around. I still find that, like, to say that there's a Seymour Fire Department that's not part of, say, Rural Metro is interesting to me, because we have, and I can see 15 years ago that was really rural. It's not so much anymore. Those areas are definitely filling in.
So this mayor's office and a county commission ago, I think they recognize that, right? That Knox County has to make some decisions about the future, about what all this needs to look like, and for some of that very reason, right? The Seymours of the world that are developing. So, they started a fire and technical rescue committee that meets, quarterly. They have a public safety director now who is great. That's a retired KFD guy, Knoxville Fire Department person, very knowledgeable, smart. And so I think we're going to work through that with them together. And the days of where Rural Metro completely operated out on their own and there was no interaction or involvement with local government, that is necessarily changing. Certainly I believe in that. We have to have a relationship with Knox County because of the reason you're talking about, is there's going to be decisions that have to be made about the future, because demand for service is not going to go down.
No.
And funding challenges are also not going to go away. So what does that look like for the future? I'm going to say, because I believe in it and I think I can prove it with evidence, is that Rural Metro is the solution. And the reason we exist, and it's not tax-based, is because of that success. By any objective measurement, whether it's fire loss per capita, deaths per capita, injuries per capita, in like-sized communities in the Southeast region, nationally, however you want to measure it, our performance is outstanding and has been for 35 years plus. So we're the solution. There's no doubt about that in my mind. It's just Knox County has to decide how they want us to do that for them.
Kind of how to proceed and grow and make those changes. It's interesting that you mentioned, and I don't know that I knew this, but like, say, Hardin Valley, that they do a subscription-based model. Most people, again, as a real estate agent, one of our things is to try to inform people of all the stuff they need to know, right? Which is, can sometimes...
Yeah, you guys have a duty to do that to your customers.
And sometimes it's hard to know all the stuff in every different area,
Sure.
Right? I know on the property disclosures that sellers fill out now, a few years ago, they put a section of, like, what is your fire department? It's amazing how many people don't know.
Sure, and that's understandable, because while I certainly hope people will spend the time watching this, I get it. It's number 3 in my world, right? But it's number 38 in your world, right? You got to take kids to soccer. You got to make sure you get to church on Sunday. You got to do all these other things. And, like, who's your fire department is kind of not even on the radar. Again, my attitude would be, well, it's not on your radar also because we're here and we do a good job. But ultimately, I totally get that. So I will say this. So for the Fire and Rescue Committee has done a good job, and I think if it's not up yet soon, you'll be able to go to KGIS and also see who's your fire department based on your parcel of property, which is great. So, it's always about getting the message out and the information out, which is also what's great about today because, hey, this rural metro thing is super weird. Knox County doesn't realize this, again, because it's number 38 on the list, but this is the largest privatized community fire department there is, right, in the United States. So, rural metro as a whole has a bunch of operations in Arizona that ultimately add up to more than us. And there's an operation in Oregon, and we do all sorts of specialty airports, industrial stuff. But for a community, this here in Knox County, based on the population, is the largest.
Well, and I think that's
So it's very unique.
unique. Also, I mean, pretty awesome in a way to think that we have. I personally think like what would be considered top tier services, right? Yeah, it's subscription based. Yes, your best bet is to figure it out and pay for it. Again, you're looking at probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 a year.
It would be more if it was taxes. I'll tell you right now.
Well, that is, I think, the point, and I think that's. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's one of the reasons why they kind of went that way, was to have it be maybe more affordable. The privatized part of it, we do know that runs better than typically government type.
So obviously,
projects.
So this community, obviously, we haven't raised taxes in over 20 years in Knox County. They're adverse to taxes. It's understandable. And ultimately, though, we would have been replaced. There is no doubt in my mind had we not done a good job. And so, again, I think that we're here because of that philosophical about taxes, but we're also here because we do a good job. They would have started a fire department and raised everybody's taxes if we were out here not doing a good job.
It's very, very, very interesting thought. I think the KGIS setup would be awesome because I don't think right now there is any one place to call to try to figure out. I think you have more options when trying to figure out what your internet service is than trying to figure out what your fire department is. And for people who don't know, kgis.org is a public site, which is also another great thing that Knox County has, because most of our neighboring counties do not have this mapping website. But you can go on there, click on that, put in your address, put in your neighbor's address, you can put in whatever address, and get all sorts of great information, down to like voting districts, what school zones, just all of it you need to know, tax records, just a lot of great information. You can even find flood maps, like the whole 9 yards. It's a but our neighboring counties don't have that, and if they do, it's not necessarily open to the public.
It's in depth too, man.
Yeah, so it's pretty awesome. So adding that to it, adding that layer, would definitely be helpful to give people one place to go. So if somebody's listening and they're like, man, I've never subscribed, I've never paid for my fire services, and they're realizing maybe for the first time that this is something they should be doing, how do they go about it?
So we try to make it easier than it used to be. If you go to ruralmetrofire.com, you should be able to navigate that pretty easily. Literally, come by, find me, come by the fire station. I can get you in touch with the right people. We do have local business development, sales representatives here in town who you can talk to. You don't have to talk to somebody at a phone bank, in Dallas or something. So we have that too. But we have local people that can work with you. They know the community. They know where you live. You tell them you're in Coreyton, for example. They know where that is. So we can work through that. But if you want to, go to the website. Again, they'll give you options. The easiest way to do it is to do the monthly, Netflix type thing, the credit card swipe. And I believe there's a little discount with that, but I didn't come prepared to answer that.
So that's Rural Metro .com?
Yeah, ruralmetrofire.com.
RuralMetroFire.com. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's even a search bar where you put in your address and stuff populates. The last time I was on there, if I'm not mistaken.
Again, it should be pretty easy to do. And, we're good about, there's a lot of letters that go out to you. You should be getting stuff in the mail, hopefully, occasionally, saying, hey, you haven't subscribed. This is how much it is. Just return this form. You certainly do it that way also. We'll work with you on what that is. What we don't want to have happen is that you've lived in your house for, 8 months or a year, and you get a giant bill, and you had a choice and you didn't make the good choice. So
Yeah, because a fire can come from anything. I got a buddy who he does crawl space like stuff. He does water mitigation, damage, all this stuff. But one service, there's all these scams out there. So like I like the fact that I know somebody who's legit. But he does not only does he do like AC vent cleaning, but he does dryer vent cleaning. And he said the stat is somewhere around 17,000 house fires come from just never having your dryer vent.
Dryer vents and dryers in general are a culprit. Cooking fires are bad. Heating fires are bad. So yeah, it always happens to somebody else. Again, if they're almost 35 years, it always happens to somebody else until it doesn't.
Right.
And so, we live this world every day at Rural Metro, but yes, please subscribe.
Please subscribe and take some of the other precautionary steps.
Yeah, and that's part of your subscription too, right? So we don't just wait for the emergencies. We'll come out to your house. We'll help you with all those preparedness things also. Check your homes, do a home safety check, make sure we'll come out and change your fire alarm batteries if we need to, if you can't reach it or something like that. So, we're here to help you in many different avenues. We do a lot of public education. We have a good partnership with Knox County on that, and we'll continue to do so because really prevention is even more important than the response component.
Yeah, I would say if you never actually had to put out a fire, that would be a good thing. I mean, I know that there's
sure,
but I mean, there's so much at risk when you have a fire. And, obviously there's the loss of a house, but there's loss of life potential. What are some of the things you're the most, as chief for Rural Metro, you're most excited about? What you have great people, equipment. What's the big news? If you were to just sing praises, what would you focus on?
Well, I think it's about sustainability for us. It's kind of like what we talked about is, right, we want to make sure that we remain the solution for Knox County for the next, 25 to 30 years. And I'm excited about the belief that we are going to be able to do that, right? So, for example, we've taken on in the last 3 years really hard stuff. All of the vehicle extrication in Knox County, where it had been done by the volunteer rescue squad. If, like we talked earlier, it's no fault of their own. Volunteers are hard, and so we had to take that on. We had to take on all the technical rescue, so things like confined space, high angle rope stuff, trench, etc. And we still partner with the rescue squad because they have a lot of stuff, but really most of the people are trained people. And we've had to do that over 3 years, and it was extremely hard. And again, if it wasn't for the men and women who work for Rural Metro and their dedication, we wouldn't have been able to do that. But that proved to me that we can do this and be sustainable long term, even based on a subscription funding model. So I'm really excited about that, in navigating that, because there are things like in the Ritter community and the Amazon building and the growth and development there, we're going to need to do something there. We have to grow with Knox County. And so we're going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue to provide a lot of opportunity for people that want to get in this line of work also, which I'm super excited about, because the workforce has changed a lot. The days of having people who sign up for a career and then kind of do what I've done and don't leave for 30 plus years. It doesn't mean it never happens, but it's less and less, more and more. And so navigating that component is something I think, we think a lot about. And I'm just excited in general because I do think we have the solutions, right, at Rural Metro for the future. And it's going to be fun to get to go do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I had Brad Anderson here with Knox 911 a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And one thing we talked about, obviously we talked. He obviously has done a lot with the police force and all that.
Sure.
And how they've dealt with kind of this cyclical employment situation. Like right now is not a fun time to be a police officer. Pay sort of sucks.
Yeah,
Public image sucks.
That's tough.
But so as far as somebody, in today's world, do people is Rural Metro out there saying, hey, here's some opportunity to be to work in the fire department, to be, is there a place, where do people even go to start that journey?
Yeah, so if you go to, if you search global medical response jobs or even Rural Metro fire jobs, you should be able to find the website to get in there. We run kind of a balancing act, right? So we will do what we call, in a lot of bigger fire departments, which our size and bigger, don't do this. We will take trained people from other fire departments and do what we call lateral entry and bring them on. And we will also do the traditional thing where you just hire the best people off the street, completely untrained, and you train them from nothing to, state firefighter level 2 or something like that, and then be able to put them on a truck. So we have kind of the full portfolio of opportunities, I think, for people, whether you're trained or completely untrained. And that's neat. That makes us different also. And we believe pretty deeply in that.
When looking for future firefighters,
Yeah.
well, what is it you're kind of looking for in a person?
I think it's people that care ultimately, right, and are dedicated. I'm a big believer that it takes a village on, not people out there, understandably, expect that, 5 triathletes are going to show up on the fire truck and get off and take care of their problem. We certainly want fit people. We want people that are dedicated and care. But the reality is that, we might have, a lot of different types of people that are going to come off of that fire truck. And honestly, that's actually better because it's teams of people that know each other's strengths and weaknesses and are able to compensate for each other. And we send great chiefs to major emergencies who know how to balance their team out and do things. So really, ultimately, though, we're looking for people that care about the people they're going to take care of and are going to care about each other too, because cardiovascular and cancer are big threats to the fire service. Firefighters in general are going to have much higher cancer rates than the average population. And the fire service navigating that is tough, and cardiovascular issues are bad for firefighters too. But ultimately, the thing that really is less on the radar these days, but starting to become more and more on the radar, is suicide problem with firefighters because of the PTSD of it, right? So, whether you're at Carnes or Seymour or the City of Knoxville Fire Department or Rural Metro, we all see stuff that is really, really difficult to see. And making sure there are avenues in place to deal with that and in a healthy way, not the unhealthy way, which if you're Gen Xer like me, you tended to deal with those things in an unhealthy way.
Right.
I think making sure that we have people that are able to deal with that, but ultimately, more importantly, making sure we have the stuff in place to help them deal with that is super important.
Well, yeah, mental health is almost like a buzzword these days, but it is obviously a major component, especially when you're dealing with these traumatic situations. I mean, you pull up on a car accident, there's no telling what you're going to see.
Sure.
And I can only assume, but in that moment you're doing the job, and then afterwards you're left like with forever to process. So yeah, I think that's definitely a big thing. We would I think as a community we would all want our, I even if you're getting paid, let's just say you're not a volunteer, that is a volunteer, like you're stepping up to do a job
For
that
sure.
most people
Absolutely.
don't do.
Absolutely.
And I think we all want those people to get the best that they, so that they can live the best life. 100%. I'm glad that that's a focus going forward.
Yeah, it really has to be, right? So ultimately, if you're the fire chief, you're responsible for all of it, and that includes people, even how they're dealing with the job when they're off, right? Is ultimately you got to make sure there's stuff in place for them to be able to handle that. And so again, kind of back to the same old thing. Those things are not free, right? So the ability to have the community subscribe, make sure they're paying in, allows us to take good care of our people. It kind of leads me to another thing, though, that does make rural metro very different. That I'm so grateful for it is we are the only community fire department in the state of Tennessee as a collective bargaining agreement. So our folks are organized in a union, and it's their own union. It's not affiliated with any national unions. And we have a collective bargaining agreement with them. And I love that because, state of Tennessee's made choices about, cities don't have to negotiate with unions. That's totally fine. Again, the people decide that. I like that there's a collective bargaining agreement because it protects our people. They have protections in place that they get to negotiate for, and we have a good relationship with them, and it really, again, they have a stake in this, and that helps our people have a stake in it. So, and they have ways too to try to make sure that their membership is being taken care of also, which I love that part of it too.
So now that you're in this role, and you were interim for a little while.
Yeah, like 7 months.
Okay.
Sort of.
So while being official chief
Yeah.
is somewhat new,
Yeah.
the role's not necessarily, but where do you see things kind of going from here? As your chief, like what do you want the future to look like?
Sure. I want us to continue to be the solution, and I think we are. And I wouldn't be here. I've had other opportunities and passed them up, and it's not because I'm great. It's not really what I mean. I've stayed with Rural Metro because I believe in it. I believe that the privatized community fire service works, and it can continue to work. And specifically in East Tennessee, there are a lot of places that are struggling, and I believe we can be the solution to their problems. And so it's not about attacking other fire departments or, trying to go into some kind of competition with them. It's really not it. We're going to do our thing, but we're also going to be out there saying we're a solution. And whether that's, some other community somewhere or just growing here locally, that's the mission.
Well, as you said, you found that this is a model that works well. The cool thing about models is that you can typically duplicate it.
Sure.
So if it works well in Farragut, it'll work well ideally in Seymour, right?
Yeah.
So I could definitely see that. And again, there's one thing I think we could all agree on is government does a lot of things well, but it also does a lot of things not so well. And sometimes being able to step in and take some of that off of their plate, especially so when things are privatized, now it has there's a reason, a motivation to make it
Sure
work better. Like you said, if we don't do a good job, then we may not be here.
Yep.
You can't really say that about most government run, hey, the trash guy didn't pick up my trash.
Sure.
Well, nobody really cares.
Sure. And I also lean into the fact that, again, it's really up to the government. It's up to local communities, the people, to decide these things. I'm going to tell you that we can do it, but it's really up to them. And, privatization isn't always a perfect stroke, right? Nothing's perfect. So, we have our own set of issues and limitations that we have to deal with. We have the right team to navigate that, though, here locally. And I believe in what we're doing on a corporate level, too, as a rural metro. So, again, I think we're the solution long term. Again, please subscribe. Thank you.
Please subscribe. So you mentioned earlier, if somebody has questions,
Yes,
they can reach out.
for sure. And, they can reach out to me even if they want to. Again, if you're interested in subscription, there's better people than me to talk to. Although
Start with ruralmetrofire.com.
Yeah, ruralmetrofire.com is the place to start. And then obviously our headquarters building is here on Campbell Station Road. We're in the process of making sure that everybody is upstairs. The upstairs portion is headquarters. And then we have fire stations throughout Knox County, and our folks understand this, right? Our men and women are out there doing the job, and I don't want them, focused on subscriptions, for example, or the business part of this. But ultimately, they're smart enough. They're smart people. They understand how this works. So if you ring the doorbell in Halls at Station 30, for example, they're going to point you in the right direction also. So, people can do that too if they're interested.
Okay. What before we start to kind of wrap this up,
Yeah.
is there any other thing that you would like to make sure that the people know about what everyone does, like what Rural Metro is or does, or is there something we haven't covered?
I think I've probably covered it, but it's always worth saying again is there's a lot of people being protected by a few, and our folks are out there every day giving everything they got to you. Everything. Potentially everything, right? Not to be dramatic, but, our job, we do take a lot of things very seriously on the safety front, and you risk a lot to save a lot. You don't risk a lot to save nothing, but ultimately what we do is dangerous, and our folks out there every day are taking that risk for the people here in Knox County. And I have to speak to that because they're my folks.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Like you said, as part of the community, again, if you're listening to this and you didn't realize or didn't know, or you've just not paid attention to it, figure out where, or if you're in a rural metro spot, figure it out. Like, subscribe. This is how we protect our community. This is how, again, there's so many benefits to having this, that I think it definitely outweighs, let's face it, $400 a year is not gonna, it's not, I could be speaking out of turn, but I don't think it's gonna kill anybody. Like
Right.
especially in our neck of the woods.
I understand that, we'll go back in time a little bit, that when folks have to sit down and make a decision about writing a check for $400, and maybe they're paycheck to paycheck, and they're trying to find a way to send their kid to camp in the summer or put fuel in the car. I understand it's tough for people to make that decision because it's easy to say, well, this isn't going to happen to me, and, who are these privatized people anyway? Well, I kind of just told you who they are, and they're there for you, and we do need your support. But I'm sympathetic to the decision-making process for people. Sure, for some people it's not difficult, and those people that don't subscribe, that's super hard. But ultimately, there are a bunch of people in Knox County that's a tough decision to make, and I again kind of respectfully ask for their support for Rural Metro.
100%, 100%. Well, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
Sure.
To come out, to be on our podcast, to talk to the basically, hopefully we can get this in front of a lot of people, where they can understand a little bit more about how it works.
Yeah, I would encourage people to watch a lot of these, right? So, certainly the flipping houses world isn't my world, but if you're interested in that, you should watch it. I would encourage people though to certainly watch Commissioner Jay's and definitely watch Director Anders. I think that for example, Rural Metro is going to go to 911, and we're going to be working closely again, trying to create more of a public-private partnership to keep costs low for subscribers. So, we're doing things. We're always interested in that, and certainly you can learn more about what's going on in the emergency services world if you check out
I,
those.
I will say so. I will say, talking with Brad, that the technology that he was talking about.
Yeah, he's done a really good job over there. I think that he's passionate about it. He's got a great team. People I've known a really long time, and they're doing great things over there.
Yeah, talk about behind the scenes stuff,
Yeah.
though. I mean, I didn't even know that, like, that kind of organization. I mean, we all know 911's a thing,
Sure.
but none of us really know what
Right.
911 is.
And again, the expectation is perfect, right?
Yeah, I pick up this phone, somebody shows up, and
It
him
takes
saying,
a lot to get to perfect, though.
yeah, well, and him talking about how, man, by the time we picked up, the system's already done
Yeah.
these different things. It was pretty wild.
Yep.
And the future, in Knox County is going to be interesting. I mean, we're going to be, as soon as we're done with this election cycle, we're going to have an election that's going to be for county mayor.
Right.
We have still a very steady influx of people moving to the area. Reading about these things, such as the big project I was reading about the other day, they're trying to get to go to Oak Ridge. That will impact us
of course.
here. There's just so much happening, that a lot of these things, I mean, people need to pay attention, because growth is coming. How we grow
Sure.
is very important. But I think the biggest part is that community aspect you were talking about. It's one thing that I've said before. I said, hey, the roads may change, the neighborhoods may change, but the people don't have to change. Like, we can still be a tight knit community, and keep a lot of our what makes Knoxville and Knox County, East Tennessee special. We keep it that way. So yeah, that's my spiel on that.
No, I totally agree. I mean, Knox County is very diverse, and Rural Metro experiences that, right? So we have extremely rural parts of Knox County still, even with all the development, and we have urbanized kind of areas like Farragut too within our scope, right? There's huge challenges. Again, I could talk all day. I mean, we've had a couple of years in a row where the urban wildland interface has been a big challenge for us, right? Where we've had, whether climate change, other factors have really caused significant wildfires here in Knox County, and we've been able to avoid, again, because the men and women are great and some forward thinking on our part. We've got a good wildland team. We've got specific apparatus and equipment just for wildland. But there's real challenges. We've had some close calls with whole subdivisions being in danger, and people are kind of not aware of that. Again, I think because we do a good job. But no, as we grow, there's in the emergency services world, and it's all of it really. It's law enforcement, it's fire, it's rescue, it's EMS, and we talk about ambulances too all day. There's real challenges for this community as it grows. Growth is a wonderful thing, but you got to be up to the challenges.
Yeah, so it was interesting kind of what you're talking about there, how preventative stuff, when you do things to keep things from happening, or behind the scenes, whenever something's not, we've seen what major fires look like. But even when, okay, so look, California has them all the time, right? It seems every year they have major. we hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
But from here, it's just news.
It
But
is, and November traditionally is our kind of tough time, and I expect it to be potentially tough again. We'll see what rainfall does, but yeah, keep stuff away from your house, clear your leaves, don't leave them.
yeah, take the extra steps.
Right.
But it's interesting how, like, as far as we do things, even in our office, we do things that our clients never know about.
Yeah.
And then later they're like, "What did you do?" And it's like, "What?" So being able to talk about like some of the things that you've done to help the community to even prevent something is pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, that's the responsibility too of leadership, whether it's local government or emergency agencies leadership. There was a ton of work that went into the winter storm that we had, right? 30-year storm. I've seen 2 of them now. And it was rough, but there was a ton of work that went into that, a ton of preparedness stuff on the front end before it ever even started to snow. And, understandable, but there were still people out there that were really complaining about things, and I think they would complain less had they known the amount of resources that went into it on the front end, and really what a major success it was to deliver the level of service that got delivered to people. And stuff even not like emergency services like roads, right? Clearing roads. But, that's an educational thing, and ultimately there is responsibility for agencies and local government to do that education for people.
Yeah, it's real interesting how when we have these events like that, that snow we had, it was pretty intense. We don't get a ton. I mean, it's not normal. We don't get a ton of that.
Right.
But then people want to start critiquing how everybody else responds to it, and it's like, man, like,
well,
first of all,
and that's okay. I mean, again, I think, as a fire rescue service here in Knox County, we're okay with the critique, right? I think our people understand that people are going to be critical. Our job is to explain to them, what went into it and why it was the way it was, and ultimately why they actually got pretty good service, if not great service.
well, and then the other part is we're all in it together. Like, no one person was not impacted by
Right.
the weather. So anyways, it's just always interesting to me.
Yeah, no,
how
it is,
people
for sure.
respond to events that aren't the everyday stuff. Well, Jeff,
Yep.
man, I appreciate you being here.
No, it's fun. It's always fun.
I'm assuming I can. I mean, you're chief of the fire department,
Yeah.
but I'm like Jeff. Like
You can call me Jeff. It's fine. The kids on the lacrosse team call me Chief, but you can call me. No, it's totally fine. Call me whatever you want. I tell everybody that. Like, it's fine.
I do appreciate you being here, and being my first repeat podcast guest. And one of the things I love about doing this though is getting that information out. And if you have questions, if you're listening, and you have questions. Obviously, there's resources for you if you have questions about rural metro. Obviously, check out ruralmetrofire.com, and then kind of go from there. But if you have questions about the community, like, hey, this is different, how do I find answers, feel free to reach out to me. One thing I've found and I love about this area is how accessible people have been.
Sure.
I mean, to have county commissioners and people who run the 911 operation and the chief of the fire department, I'm happy to help to try to find those answers and to get you what you need. So with that being said, hey, I think this was a good show.
I think it was.
And maybe down the road there'll be
Who knows?
another opportunity.
Some other thing. We'll figure something out.
But with that being said, hey guys, I appreciate it. If you have questions about real estate, I definitely want to be your resource. We help people every day buy and sell homes here in the East Tennessee region. And again, we're the Knox Fox Real Estate Group. You can find us at not theknoxfox.com. And I look forward to talking to y'all later. Have a good one.